I'm Major 7 with the New Old Heads, and this is episode 481. This week we had a discussion about both Justin Bieber and the Clipse mixed reviews at Coachella, Afrika Bambaataa's death and the polarizing responses to it, New Edition getting snubbed and Wu-Tang getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and more. Support us and get the 2-hour uncut episode by becoming a $5 Patreon or YouTube member, and make sure to click the bell and turn on notifications. We'll see you in the comments. Peace. You are now tuned in to the New Old Heads podcast. I am Major 7. The brothers are in the building. Starting off with my brother Jay Moore. How are you, good sir?
Doing well. You know, just navigating this increasing temperatures outside.
I heard that, man.
You know, gotta have this is the thing when you were like, oh man, let me put my sunroof down. Let me go ahead and fire up the AC.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it should be a little colder in here today. Let me hit this other button.
No, that's real. That's real.
It's like, first thing wrong with the new car. Got to get the AC fixed.
Come on, that's all right. What they say in due time, my man.
Look, I can't complain. I got a ride and I can move around the way I need to.
A to B is the answer, my brother. My man, Lonegevity. Hey, buddy.
Howdy. Hi.
Okay. Don't be aggressive. It's okay.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this passive aggressiveness.
Sensitive. Good to see you, my friend, as always.
Yep.
My man DJ Jay Diff, what's happening, man?
Salutations.
What type of mood are you in?
I don't know. I mean,
just asking.
I'm here. Haven't cussed anybody out today.
I know. But that is on the table at all times.
Yeah, it's always an option.
Depending on the person.
Especially sitting next to you.
Yeah, I tend to trigger him from time to time. But I don't know why. But
you do it on purpose.
I do not.
You absolutely do.
My man Gobo, aka the champ, is in the pilot seat today. He doesn't have a mic, so I'm not going to ask him anything. But it's good to see you, Gobo.
I'm here. Hi.
Oh, there he is. How you doing, buddy? They can't see you, but you good?
I'm doing good.
That's all you got? I see the beard coming in, too. They can't see that either. But we see you getting mature out here. I like that.
Getting mature.
I messed up last time. I quoted his age, so I ain't about to say it again.
I've been mature.
There we go.
Damn, excuse me.
Yeah.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah, he tried to say it with his chest. I stand corrected. Sorry, sir. Bieber's performance at Coachella and him being on the laptop and just, playing some records. And they pulled all the videos down. I think Coachella's been mad about videos that are surfacing online and people are getting strikes and all that type of stuff. But from what I saw from some shorts, to Lone's point about the laptop, it's like I'm seeing mixed reviews. Some people are saying, oh, it's groundbreaking, it's different. And I'm seeing other people say, this is some of the laziest shit I've ever seen.
Well,
did y'all have any initial thoughts about that, or what did you guys think about that?
It was on YouTube, so all you got to do is just go to the performance on YouTube.
I looked today, it's gone.
No, they only left up certain songs from it. So,
okay.
And I know this specifically because one of the headliners, his name was Cascade. I worked with their team over the weekend and capturing his live stream live.
Yeah.
Because Coachella was going to pull it off.
Yeah.
I know specifically that they were only going to keep like a couple of records.
Yeah, I saw individual songs, and then I never could find anything with the full performance. They had already pulled it.
Yep.
But I'm seeing reviews where people are saying it's different, and then other people are just saying 100% lazy. I saw there's a montage of fans saying, this is bullshit, this is lazy, we came out here to see him perform. So based off what everybody saw, what do y'all think about that, man? Just his choice to do this, or just initial thoughts about the performance?
I think I only care about what the fans think. I'm not a fan, so I don't care. But like from what I've seen, and what the interpretation I got is that this still wasn't just. I think this was still planned out. I don't think this was like just him on his laptop. I think they had it planned that way to kind of take them down through a memory lane of sorts of Justin's stuff, and even when he sang with himself. And I saw the opposite. I saw a lot of people thinking that it was like a cool way to do it. And to be honest, from a creative perspective, like I thought it was interesting. The fact that he had such a nonchalant, it wasn't a crazy set, it wasn't all this hoopla, blah 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 blah. It's him out there being kind of intimate in a way with his fans and
at a festival
doing something like that. I personally, out of all the things that people call me a hater or whatever, like I thought it was cool.
Honestly,
I'm also not a Bieber fan. I don't know what they were expecting, so.
I mean, I'm not sure if they wanted him to hit a little two-step or something, but there was a part where I saw he was like basically harmonizing with his younger self.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty cool idea. You know, I can see where if you weren't a fan of Justin Bieber and you just see somebody on stage with a laptop standing there, you'd be like, well, what is this? I didn't pay for this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are people who are fans of Justin Bieber who are literally there because they like his music.
Yeah.
And so the way he decided to present it to him, I don't know if they'd have been particularly bothered by it. In fact, I think a lot of people were into it.
I thought it was cool, man.
It's exactly the opposite of what we discussed last week when Jay Electronica decided to present his art in a different way and people started booing.
Yep.
Yeah, it also goes.
What you think, bro?
It goes into the play that, I mean, he was discovered off of YouTube too. You know what I'm saying? So before he was the Justin Bieber that everybody knows, he was just in his room singing songs and uploading it to YouTube. You know what I'm saying? In a like Soulja Boy manner, essentially. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to his roots. And he's got another week. I think he plays this coming weekend as well.
I don't know.
I'm wondering if his show changes, like if this was just like the beginning montage and then the second show is going to be like the grand finale, what he actually is going to do or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I didn't really see it being a problem, man. And then I think he brought out Tim's.
Mm-hmm.
She did the song that they got together or whatnot. But and then it goes into play like a lot of his audience and people that are into him are really into watching shit on YouTube.
Let me ask you this, Terry. I'm gonna stay here with you. As it relates from an artist standpoint and a performer, the concept of someone performing and making an experience with the fans and being more intimate, is it fair to say that is more suitable for a smaller audience versus a festival? Because you may have newbies. You may have people that aren't necessarily on the Bieber wave that might just want to see some dope music and see you perform live. Do you have to think about that, or
nah?
You don't have to think about that.
No,
as
I would
an
say
artist?
it's probably easier because with him being a headliner, the people are there to see him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he's not going to get backlash based off of his decision to act like he's pulling stuff directly from YouTube when it was actually gone until it's thought out with the show. Like if I go to a show and there's somebody that hasn't made it and they bring out a computer and do that,
That's different.
Actually probably frowning upon it a little more.
No, I'm booing.
Than somebody that's established. And this is kind of part of the stick because I started on YouTube. So I'm going to start my show or my first week in Coachella by using this YouTube platform, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm not mad at that.
I think it depends. As somebody who literally teaches music production performance,
Talk to him.
Computers are normal. I think that the specific difference here is pulling it off of YouTube and like rapping over your music videos and things of that nature. I think Justin is a very specific example of he could pull it off, and there were 5 other stages going on at the same time, or 4, right?
True.
You can go somewhere else if you don't like it, but
True.
there's a subtle difference. I've seen many shows where it was just one person and a laptop, and they did amazing shows, but they're also running a program in the background.
running programs and doing live instrumentation and stuff like that.
I saw Iman Omari in Chicago. He just had a laptop with Ableton on it and a trumpet player. That's all he had,
Yeah.
and it was great.
Yeah.
So
And I
I
also
mean-
have to add too that it had to be a pre-recorded situation, because if he was doing it live off the internet, and this is just speculation, what if he ran into a situation to where the internet's not pulling the video and then the performance doesn't go on like it's supposed to because it's buffering or he lost internet access? So I kind of feel like it was thought out and just made to be presented like I'm pulling this stuff live off of YouTube and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that. That's fair.
Yeah. I we're in a kind of an area of the world right now, media and everything, where everything is just kind of rinse, repeat, do the same thing over and over again. So to be honest, it's kind of a breath of fresh air in a little bit of a way that he decided to do something a little bit different.
It's definitely different. I just saw, I saw a couple of videos of, his fans reacting, and I was surprised at how mixed the reactions were, because some people were like, "We love Bieber, we don't care. He took us down memory lane." There's other people that's like, "Nah, I was trying to see him perform." So that's the only reason I
Let's
asked.
flip the conversation and kind of keep it similar, because there's another subject really related to that. So I saw something on the internet on Threads where somebody said specifically, and this is right after I watched a clip of the Clipse performing at Coachella, that said something along the lines of, "This is the worst, most boring performance at the entire festival." And I saw the clip, and when you watch it, they're doing their thing. It's just that, you know, the crowd didn't really seem super into what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, my comment, which kind of went mini viral, was, it's, you know, I was like, the performance wasn't lame, the crowd was lame.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not on them necessarily, but I posed that question. You know, we talked about Jay Electronica last week with the acapellas, then we talked about Justin Bieber, and then we're talking about the Clipse, who went out there and did, in my opinion, they were solid performers.
Yeah.
They performed the way that you would expect two top tier hip hop MCs to perform on a set from an album that won Album of the Year or whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, the way they didn't win Album of the Year, did they?
No, they didn't.
But they could have.
It was one of the top
They
records
could
of
have
the
won
year.
Album
Yeah,
of the
they
Year,
could have.
right?
They were in the running.
Yeah,
For sure. For sure.
So then that kind of, again, to your question, that brings up the conversation. Is it on the artist if the crowd is not into the set that the artist is putting together, or you know, or is there something else going on here?
I think with the Clipse, you know, just based off, I did a little research on it just to try to find some videos, to your point about actually getting a chance to see him rock. And I feel like our age group and maybe a little bit under us really appreciated that album. And who knows what the fan base was age-wise, right? Like in terms of who's actually in the crowd. I think it just goes to Coachella. Sorry about that. But what I'm saying is,
Coachella is a festival that people go to be seen.
Exactly. Right. So it's it's not the crowd that's like, oh my God, all the purists or the heads or whatever you want to call it are in there. So people are just floating around. You said multiple stages. So maybe it's not going to be as appreciated as it would at a different venue that's just focused on the Clipse.
Sure. Absolutely not.
I had to take that into consideration as I watched it, because it's like, maybe this is not the spot for them to get their flowers because of the setup of the festival. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But I mean, it's the Clipse. You got to understand, Clipse is they're an anomaly when it comes to a rap group that came out in the early 2000s and are still relevant to this day.
True.
There are people that grew up and left their homes and, you know what I'm saying, still are listening to the Clipse, and there's people or kids that are just now getting familiar with the Clipse, which is most likely going to be the Coachella crowd. It's not going to be people our age or people that came up during the Clipse initial run. It's going to be new people.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people just heard of the Clipse from their last album, or of course everybody's heard Grinding.
Yeah.
Or they know Pusha T because he was beefing with Drake, or he was signed to Good Music. Things of that nature kind of gives them the direct, you know what I'm saying, recognition of what the Clipse are. So I mean, it's Coachella at the end of the day. I mean, they had Travis Barker playing drums for the first part of their set.
Yeah, I saw that. I definitely saw that.
I mean, they did their thing. It wasn't a boring performance to me, because I actually was watching it while I was at work. I pulled it up during some downtime. I was watching it live, and I mean, they gave a typical Clipse performance. I didn't really feel like it was boring or anything like that. Again, like Lone said, it was a matter of the crowd being lame or just out of touch. And it's kind of like
or maybe just new.
Exactly.
Because I've done shows where the crowd when they don't know, and sometimes they can be tapped in, and just because they're not like jumping up and down and doing this thing, like that's not the Clipse.
Nah.
You know what I mean? Like the Clipse, they make music to soak in a little bit. So maybe that's what it was, to some degree.
Yeah, people at Coachella, especially if they're close, they want to go wild, they want to mosh, they want to get dirty, they ain't trip. You know what I'm saying? The people that are there just to be seen most likely ain't in the crowd. They're like in the surrounding areas or up front. I think there was a video circulating around that Young Thug found North in the audience, and he pretty much he was on his uncle shit trying to protect North. Hey, I want y'all to mosh, but don't let North in the mosh pit. She shouldn't even be here, type shit. But yeah, I mean, it's like people go there to have a good time, and Clipse is not the type of music that you're going to mosh to. You know what I'm saying? And they're not that type of rap group that everybody easily recognizes or even are into. You know what I'm saying?
Jump in, Jay. What you think? My fault.
This reminds me a little bit of when Method Man and Redman were at Summer Jam. What was like a year ago or so?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You know, the crowd wasn't into it, and it was I look. This Coachella crowd was there to see Justin Bieber and
electronic music.
There's still people there who were probably
Diplo,
excited to see. This is a crowd that still gets excited to see Sexy Red. Mm-hmm. So they're not trying to hear about the Clipse and the Birds Don't Sing and records where they're being reflective and you have to pay attention to the lyrics to catch the similes and the double entendres and all these things. That's not what they're there for. So there are other places where, like, if you bring out the Clipse and they do that same concert, that same group of songs, it's going to go crazy. But like, you stick them out next to a Ferris wheel in a beach or something, you're like, they're not going to care. Like, these people paid a ridiculous amount of money and they want to be stimulated. And if you are 23 years old, that's not what the Clipse do. That's not even really your version of hip hop. So, I mean, like I said, I don't even want to call the crowd lame. It's just they are used to a different type of energy. They're not used to, I don't want to say used to lyrical hip hop, but like, really, that's what it is. They're not there to actually listen to the words. It's about
diamonds look like pee-pee.
Yeah, they're there to do drugs. They ain't there to hear you rap about drugs.
Yeah, and it's about a certain level of energy where you can actually divorce yourself from the actual lyrics. Like, you don't think people go to Travis Scott concerts, and this is no diss to him, but
Young Thug was there this weekend.
Yeah, they're not there when Travis Scott is performing. They're not hanging on every word. They're waiting for the word where they can yell real loud. It's about energy. It's about in its own way, community. So where what was that one kid who had? It was like everybody was. You go to
Sheck West.
Yeah, Mo Bamba. Like that.
Sheck West.
Sheck West. He had the song Mo Bamba. And I don't know really anything else in that song other than the part where everybody.
I remember me and Lone.
the part where everybody curses real loud.
Me and Lone went to a selection show in Chicago.
Yeah.
And when they played Mo Bamba, the floor felt like it was going to cave in.
And it was concrete.
Yeah. Felt like it was going to cave in. That's how much movement was going on.
No, I've been in spots where like that song got brought back 3 and 4 times when it was at the height, and it wasn't because Sheck West was saying something so phenomenal. It's like they were just waiting for that one really energetic point to come back again, and they were willing to let it build. And that's not what the Clipse, especially this last album, was about. So, I mean, like I said, I don't want to call them lame. This new crowd, the people who are at Coachella, are conditioned to a different kind of energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're lame. But, one of the comments that most people, like, when I put my comment out there, they was like, yeah. But one person's like, diamonds look like pee-pee, and he was like, get the out of here. I was like, man, that line just soared so far above your head.
Yeah.
Because pee-pee is a way to rate. It's like P to the second is in the following line after there with his VV and him and
whatever. Yeah,
do your Googles.
Yeah, come on,
This is Pusha T, man. I mean, his rhymes ain't basic
at all. They've never been.
Malice's rhymes ain't basic either, for that matter. I mean, it's the Clipse.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of to be expected. From another perspective, I would maybe make the argument: was this again? You don't turn down Coachella.
No, you don't.
Right, you don't do that. But what was the other? There were a couple things that they've been booked for where I was just kind of like, the Clipse. It was like the Clipse just don't really make sense.
That was a weird
when they performed. Was at the
Grammys? It was
not at the Grammys. The Vatican.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like they've had a handful of very interesting bookings that don't seem to like fit and align with their brand in a specific type of way. And there is something to be said about putting your artists in not so great situations, from a management perspective, regardless of if you can get it.
Well, at this point, I mean, it's luxury drug rap. I mean, they have contracts with Louis Vuitton, and things of that nature. I mean, they're going to get looks that their crowd is not necessarily going to be into it, based off of who they're rubbing elbows with.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't know, man.
I'm not mad at it. It's just it's just an observation, I guess, that, you know, like the choice at the ESPYs was not.
When they walked out and they're like, "I'm your pusher," I'm like, "Nah, not tonight, man." It was just weird,
Yeah.
you know, watching what their energy was, and like, it's all these professional athletes and their handlers and, you know, whoever, and they're just like, yeah, I kind of remember this.
Yeah. You are now listening or watching the New Old Heads podcast. Our official 1-hour episode is released every Saturday at noon Eastern, where we share our exclusive uncut 2-hour episode to our YouTube members and Patreon members early every Wednesday. The show is brought to you by Coleman Dental, Indie City and Vinyl, Decademics, and Bringing Down the Band. And most importantly, you. You can support the show directly by becoming a member at patreon.com/newoldheads, where we embrace the new, respect the old, and remain ahead.
So Afrika Bambaataa recently passed, and all of hip hop was not mourning his death. So it's obvious that Afrika Bambaataa's death did not bring closure. It brought the same unresolved controversy back to the surface because his name still carries two histories that do not sit side by side easily. So obviously we know these responses have been different, and rest in peace, because he's still a legend in hip hop. But the question I would pose is,
rest in peace.
Well, yeah, you can do that too. Mm-hmm. But are you surprised that the 50-50 response to Bambaataa's death is as prevalent? Why or why not?
Absolutely
I don't even
not.
think it's 50-50.
Is it?
Nah. I think
I see some people repping for him. I ain't gonna hold you. I do see it,
and that's fine. But the thing is, you know, a lot of times what you do in the light, which is what we know Afrika Bambaataa for on a cultural level, you know, the Zulu Nation, Soul Sonic Force, him actually coining the word hip hop,
right,
and adding that to the lexicon, and that being a part of the culture, that is always going to be overshadowed by the things that you do in the dark. You know, the allegations, the fact that, like, one of his accusers, there was a court case, he didn't even show up to court to defend himself.
Yeah, true.
You know, and the thing is, it'd be one thing if you was just out here living foul, but we're talking about children.
Yeah,
right?
man.
And the thing is, when you're talking about children, that's never going to be something that can, you know, it doesn't matter your good deeds. It's always going to be overshadowed by, like I said, the things you do in the dark. So I don't even think this is a 50-50 thing. Most of us, you know, we can't celebrate his achievements within the culture because we know what he did, or at least what he was alleged to have done. That some people still see it as allegations, but sometimes it's just where there's smoke, there's fire. There's just too much here for me to act like, oh man, those kids, and like, what did they have to gain from coming out? It's not like, I mean, I don't know Afrika Bambaataa. He probably had something, but it's like none of those people were coming after money. Yeah, they were just, you know,
coming for closure.
They were looking for some sort of closure and maybe a small piece of justice, which I don't think almost any of them were able to achieve. Nah. So when you're talking about this, I mean, I'm pretty sure that someone was going to miss him. But if I had I remember this is what's crazy. This broke, you know, this whole thing that we really got to the point where we couldn't ignore it, even though there are people say, oh, everybody knew that. Well, I don't live in the Bronx at that time. I wasn't nowhere near Soundview, but they said everybody knew, and I was like, I remember he was going to come to the Jazz Kitchen, and then like the story broke, and it was like, nah, we're not doing that, because trust me, if I had a picture, say he had come and things had broken a couple weeks after that. If I had taken a picture of Afrika Bambaataa, I wouldn't want anybody to see that shit.
No, that would have came.
That's
down.
tough.
You know, just
That's
like, look, you know, as much as I love the Cosby Show and A Different World, I can, when, unfortunately, this is what it is when you live foul in the dark and it's come to the light. When Bill Cosby passes away, we're not going to talk about the legacy of the Cosby Show. We're not going to talk about him winning I Spy, you know, the Emmy for I Spy and Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. You know, it'd be wonderful, and that's probably what he would want to be at the top of the obituary. But it's going to be the allegations. It's going to be the convictions. It's going to be the things he's done wrong. So it's the same thing with Afrika Bambaataa. I can't really even say rest in peace to this man because he hurt children.
He wasn't accountable.
Yes, that was the thing. Never accountable for the things he had done.
I want you to stay here. You brought up a good point when you talked about Bill Cosby. We're gonna do a comparison. Just comparison.
Okay.
Who's sown more positively? Does that matter? That's the question I'm asking.
That's the thing. It
does
doesn't
that matter? That's what I want to ask. Does that matter?
Because it's like, wait a minute.
Comparing two pieces of shit, like which one smells more?
That's why I asked.
Like,
that's why I asked.
you know, it's like, okay, now you almost think, did he do all that good because he was doing so much wrong?
That's fair.
Like, okay, yeah, he sent all these kids to college.
That's fair.
But you know, what about all the people he hurt and did dirty?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Is that him trying to square things with the universe, or did he really do that out of the kindness of his heart, or because he thought it was the right thing to do? Like, all that, you know, sure, you know, Afrika Bambaataa wound up like taking, you know, the energy of gangbanging and turned it into the Zulu Nation. But if I am a child that was hurt and had my life turned upside down, and I'm still going through counseling and trying to be a productive member of society, I don't care about any of that shit.
That's fair.
Yeah, and multiple things can be true at the same time. He can be all these things to hip hop and also be who he is,
right?
You know, and I don't think it's an either or. And so if people want to celebrate him for whatever because they appreciate that portion of that from him, okay, whatever. It's not my place to be, you know, the judge,
tell them that they can't do that.
And jury, you know, whatever. Do I think it's a little weird? Yeah, I do. I do, honestly. But you know, at the same time, it's like, you know, I think another part of this conversation too that, you know, that we'll probably get into is like, you know, like the people that were, I don't want to say vouching for it, but were vouching for not saying anything at all. You know what I mean? And that's another piece of this. But am I surprised at the 50-50 response or the negative response from it? No. I think it's pretty much on par. I was surprised. Look, in general, most media, hip hop media, like, sure, some people kind of addressed it, like, because I felt like Curtis King, he felt like he, you know, we should talk about this. Open Mike Eagle had a video. I didn't watch it, but he had a video like, we should talk about this. And, you know, it's very easy from a hip hop perspective to just kind of throw this under the rug and not talk about it. And just be like, you know, like, he's tainted himself. Let's move on from it. But I think it's important to talk about stuff like this, you know.
Jump in, Terry.
So,
I mean, this is what he did is inexcusable. Like, I cannot ride or side with anybody that has done anything to kids, man, at the end of the day.
Yep.
What he brought to the table as far as the culture of hip hop and things of that nature, there was other people with him that can carry that legacy without it still being connected to him. Now, it's going to always be connected to him based off of he coined the term hip hop.
True.
But just because he created something, I mean, our forefathers founded this country. A lot of them were pieces of shit.
Good point.
And I still live in this country, but I don't have to big up them just because I live in this country.
Good point.
Same things with hip hop. I can still fly the hip hop flag without having to honor somebody that did terrible things to kids, man. Having a child myself, just the thought of somebody doing something to my kid makes my blood boil. You know what I'm saying?
That's real.
Like,
that's real.
Imagine somebody that had to live with this, and then there's people that know about it. And was, everybody know about that. You can't sweep shit like that under the rug, man.
Agreed.
That shit affects somebody's whole livelihood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you
I
have
agree.
to go to therapy and shit like that for something that somebody did to you. And then when it, like he said, go to court and you don't even show up. He's never spoke on it. He's never denied it either. If somebody claimed that you did something to somebody, you should get in front of it in a position that, especially if you're not guilty.
I'm denying it off top.
You're going to get in front of it and you're going to be, look, these allegations are false. I want to, you know what I'm saying, let everybody know I'm in a position to where, y'all look to me as far as hip hop is concerned. I am not that dude. He never once had a sit down, an interview, or anything that denounced any of that shit. And for anybody to side for him and ride with him, that's bullshit. I seen KRS-One said something about if you don't like Afrika Bambaataa, then stay the away or something from hip hop.
Yeah, it was.
Man, he
it
missed me with that shit.
KRS-One has been vouching for him for years.
Listen, man. So you're okay with PDFs, essentially. You know what I'm saying?
And you know, whenever I saw those videos, the emotion that he says it with, he's like, if you don't really like Bam, then how can you be a hip hop fan? I'm like, fam.
Easy.
I'm like, fam.
Real easy.
Yeah.
You're really just sitting here vouching. To your point, you're basically trying to push everything to the side for the sake of what this was for the
Like,
hip hop
I'm not
culture.
a fan of hip bam bada hop. That's not what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
And
he's a part of it. Sure. Cool. I can acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That's
Easy.
where it stops.
You
Very easy to
can't,
acknowledge
like,
it.
as we always talk about, we've said this from time to time, we talk about the story of hip hop and what chapters and who has a chapter. Cash Money got a chapter. No Limit got a chapter. We talked about Dipset. They got a chapter. No matter what we like or not.
He got a
has
chapter, but it's a horror story at the end of the day.
Exactly.
You know
That's what I'm saying, bro. It's like you cannot. I don't know, man. I just saw some DJ tributes and I saw some stuff where I'm like, I don't know if that's it.
I can lend my tribute to somebody else that had an instrumental, meaningful building block as far as hip hop is concerned, and leave Afrika Bambaataa completely out of it. And I can say this: I've never been to any hip hop show, and I've been messing with hip hop my whole life.
Come on,
where you just had to play Planet Rock. Never.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So like, he's not embedded in a sense that every time some hip hop is being done, you have to mention Afrika Bambaataa. It is a hip hop show.
Yeah.
But we do not have to acknowledge Afrika Bambaataa because, I mean, the things that he did as far as community is concerned could have been for his own personal benefit.
Fair.
By
it maybe giving him more access to be abusive.
Yeah, you're setting up community situations to where you can be a mentor to these young kids.
Yeah.
And then do bad things to them. Now, granted, he had chapters all over the country. I mean, I think we had one here too.
Yep.
That may not have been on that bullshit. I ain't gonna say may not. Let's just say they
were not.
They were not.
They were not. I know people who involved in the Zulu Nation. That's not their character. That's not their vibe. You know, but at the same time,
that's true.
When this came out, they stopped repping the Zulu Nation.
I mean, they had identification cards and everything, man. But like, you can't be that type of individual and still expect people to rock with you, and other people that still align themselves with you should have the common sense to understand why people ain't feeling that way. It's like, nah, man. If he did that, then I'm away from that.
Yeah,
I can do my hip hop shit the way I know. You know what I'm saying? Without all that other bullshit that tainted it.
I ain't gonna hold you, man, and I'm gonna be completely honest. When I see someone, KRS-One is a legend. You ain't gotta know the albums. I don't know a lot of them, but I know he's a legend. But when I see someone that is that adamant about supporting and vouching for, and he was holding the flag, right? For him, knowing everything that happens. It's unfair. Maybe it's unfair, but that makes me look at you different from a character standpoint because you're openly doing this, knowing everything else that we've just talked about, and you're not backing off of that mug. To me, that gives me a clear view as to who you really are and what your morals and principles are. Right or wrong, but that's just how I feel.
There are none. At this point,
that's
really,
how I feel.
You have no morals or principles if you can G for somebody doing that shit to kids, man.
Fair enough. Because to me, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, if I can look at you and you can do that, you showing me and telling me who you are morally and just principle wise. Like, I can't vouch for that. I can't vouch for that.
There's some people who are just too close to a situation. I feel like that's what it was with KRS-One. You know, it would just be like if somebody told you that your best friend liked to go and rub his ass on trees in the middle of the night. And you'd be like, that is not my friend's character. But then they show you pictures of your friend out in the forest just rubbing his ass on trees.
Yeah.
So that brings there's a second question here, which is, should pioneers of hip hop get a pass if they have transgressions that are deemed shameful in the past?
No,
absolutely not.
Nobody should. I mean, it shouldn't even be just hip hop, just in general. If you have transgressions that deep and that demonic, there should be no passes given.
I agree. I think the way I would pivot this question that makes it a little bit more of a conversation based upon what we've seen is not should they get a pass. It's how do we look at the legends that are giving Bambaataa a pass? How do we?
Oh, okay.
That's the way that I think.
Well,
this just makes more sense. Like, you think back to the Melly Mel interview where he was just like, yeah, we all knew.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
How do we look at Melly Mel for saying that?
It's like, what do you mean you all knew? Like, no, granted, I know that there's different generations and things are different, things are like that, but this doesn't seem like one of those things that if you have a high position of character you just look the other way on.
Nah, to your,
You know what I mean?
to your point, I'm glad you posed that question. Like you flipped it. I'm glad you posed that question because I think that's an honest conversation as it relates to, the people that we'll say, quote unquote, around. And it's like, yeah, we all knew that. To me, when you're saying, yeah, we all knew that, that's an admission to say,
you're just like them.
Thank that. You beat me to it.
And you're not part of the community because you're supposed to be protecting the community.
Exactly.
So if somebody that is creating an outlet to protect the community and you know that they're exploiting that situation, it's your job to come in and you should have took over from that point.
That part.
Like even KRS-One being adjacent to or coming up in the same circles, he doesn't, if anything, it would look better for him to distance himself from that type of situation.
Absolutely.
Because he's not in any situations where he has to go to Afrika Bambaataa for bookings or his well-being, things of that nature. He's actually, if we think about hip-hop in general as far as artist-wise, KRS-One is a bigger artist than Afrika Bambaataa ever was.
Sure.
True.
Essentially. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand why being aligned with or being part of something with somebody means that you have to continually ride for them.
I think it's the toxicity of loyalty, which I've talked about before, which I don't ride with loyalty like everybody else does. Because sometimes when you're so loyal to something, you overlook shit that slaps you in the face because we have this thing where it's like so important, especially within the culture, to be loyal to the stuff that you're around, right?
I feel like it's
But sometimes that makes it harder for people to be accountable because of that loyalty.
That's fair. I agree with you, but
loyalty. Excuse me.
No, I got you. But I feel like that there's what you're talking about is just a level of human bias. When you get so close to someone, you're certain things that are revealed. We were talking about. We gave an example of the ass on the trees or whatever that was. But my thing is, well, you can get a bias when you're so close to a person,
right?
Where you can just. There's certain things that you just blind out even though you know that it's bullshit, right? So I think that's human nature. It's just sometimes we so close to certain people, it's like it comes a point where you have to make a choice.
Sure, it's a cognitive dissonance in a way.
And we see a lot of people that make the other choice to ignore it. And on paper, that's wrong.
It's just, I think it's a tough situation to be in from a person. Sure.
Oh, for sure. That's a terrible position to be in.
If KRS knew Bambaataa this whole time, they were potentially even doing stuff together, whatever that may be, you know what I mean? Like from cultural events or I don't know what how integrated they were with the things they were, but like, it makes it challenging to especially when you were the teacher, to I don't want to say erase a portion of it, but to kind of like abstain yourself and throw it. It's tough from the perspective of having a relationship with somebody and having to choose between maybe how you feel morality wise versus what you potentially should do, because then you feel like you're throwing somebody on the bus. And so there's a human element there. Yeah. But that also, to your point, that does brings in the morality of everything. It's like what's more important?
What's more important? That's a good point. Go ahead.
Is my relationship with this person more important than
my morals?
Condoning the fact that they did some abhorrent shit.
Fair. Jump in, Jay.
No, I mean it's kind of like what we've talked about, in previous weeks with Kanye West, where what does he have to do where people say, "No, we're not going here." I mean, I'm pretty sure there are people who. I think a lot of it, you saw how quickly people were to forgive him with him doing little to no work to earn people's forgiveness.
I told y'all he was Teflon.
A couple of words on the internet and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we forgot all about the swastika chain and the Black Klansman robe and the White Lives Matter t-shirts and the Harriet Tubman didn't actually do anything. Like, we just forgot all about that and we're just happy to be at a part of the spectacle again. Yep. And that's an extreme example when we're talking about the Afrika Bambaataa and Kanye West, but there are people that never left his side. They always were trying to make excuses. It wasn't even like they were trying to help him. They just wanted to make excuses for him so they could seem in a space where they were not being disloyal,
or they act like it didn't exist.
It's like you didn't understand, or like you gotta no, I don't have to. There's no way you can tell me, oh well, this about these kids.
There's no excuse.
And then you try to tell me this about, especially when he didn't even try to answer for it. You know, that's just too much for me to ignore.
And this like it ain't nothing new though, because like even when you look at it, some of these religious organizations, they have the same type of situations going on within their organization. They don't talk about it publicly. They sweep it under the rug and move said individuals somewhere else in the same exact position that they held where they were on bullshit. So it's like, this is unfortunately is not new, but for it to be associated with hip hop is what bothers me. And it doesn't deter me from not wanting to rock with hip hop at all. But like, I'm shunning this individual. I have nothing to do with him. Whatever he was on, whatever he taught to such and such, MC this, that, or the third, good. I'm glad they used it for good. But as far as him himself, I'm cool, man.
What if, you know, we go down the rabbit hole a little bit. What if because of how important hip hop was in the Zulu Nation and the things that he was building, that was part of the reason why the pioneers of sorts tried to look the other way in a different way, because they didn't want to necessarily tear something down that was potentially so important at the same time.
I can see where they're not want to take a brick out of the foundation.
Sure.
Because there might have been a fear that if we do that, then the entire house falls apart.
Crumbles. Yeah.
You know, but at this point, I think we see that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, someone could have said something, you know, or said, you know, this is why Bambaata's not here.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, because we don't.
The show goes on, man.
Yeah.
But
We
like
don't rock.
Every foundational group that is really into community building, let's use gangs for example.
Mm-hmm.
They have certain principles and guidelines that they abide by. If you don't meet one of those principles or guidelines, or if you violate any of those principles, or you know what I'm saying, you're kicked out. Whether it be, unfortunately, you might be killed, you might be jumped, anything.
Taking your patch.
But you have to abide by your, you know what I'm saying, guidelines and things of that nature. So with it being hip hop and them starting the organization or whatnot, the Zulu Nation, regardless of what he did to build that organization, there had to be, you know what I'm saying, guidelines to follow. And that definitely should have been one that should have been followed. Doesn't matter if you found it or not, you didn't abide by these rules. So you are out. We're taking it from here.
I like the conversation about, I guess the way I would say it would be how people were acting during the inception of whatever this was, right? Because it's kind of a catch-22. It's like, okay, this can be positive for the community, but I have to turn the eye to certain shit that I'm seeing while it gets off the ground. But I think Terry said, I think it was Terry that said, okay, so it gets off the ground and it's doing whatever. That's at some point you have to step in and be like, nah, fam, like this is still wrong. And I feel like that is the part that's missed.
Sure.
It's like from the inception, it's like, yeah, we gonna just do what we gotta do so we can get it out here. But nobody ever circled the block to come back to be able to say, all right, so at this point, you wrong. And we got to get you up out of here.
Yeah, you're a crooked
and the message
preacher.
is still going to go on.
You're a crooked preacher at this point.
That part.
Get you up out of the congregation.
And nobody held him accountable.
Yeah, I think that's
part.
That's the piece. I think that the real, I mean, I pose the hypothetical, but the real solution is you have to be real and be truthful about stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way to move through it. Like if you care about the thing, like you can be like, wow, you know, this person is not here, and we, as this organization, do not represent this, and we're going to be moving on from this individual.
Yep.
The Zulu Nation did do that.
Yeah, sure.
No,
eventually.
For sure.
I mean, at a certain point, it was just like, okay, no, and I know a lot. It kind of fell apart. Like a lot of people were like, you know, after even the allegations came out, they're like, okay, we're not. This isn't us anymore. We can't do this.
Yeah.
But then after a certain point, they're like, we. Shun this person. We don't F with him anymore. But I mean, it was too late to help those kids.
Done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. That's this is one of those ones where I kind of watched to see, and I was very surprised because I saw, just the mixed reactions. I knew pretty much how we would react, but when you see it online, you actually watch it. It's like.
I mean, the only person,
a couple of them people in there were still pulling straws. Like
the only people that I saw doing that was Chuck D, but he pulled his tweet down. And all he did was like All he did was send condolences, which whatever. Like he probably.
I
knew
can
him.
understand.
Yeah, I get it. Like I get it. Like it's.
I saw some DJ tributes. I saw.
Maybe I'm just not in that circle or something. But
I must have been an algorithm or something because I actually typed in just to see, and I saw a couple DJ tributes and tried to find some articles and certain people were rest in peace Bam and all that type of stuff, and I'm like, okay, cool, but at the end of the day, I'm still looking at you like, I mean, what do you really truly stand
you
for?
don't even get a rest in peace for
That's
me.
what I was about to say, man. Because like you left people alive that still haven't found peace.
You weren't
That's
ever,
fair.
you were never
That's
accountable for anything. What?
That's fair. That's a good point, Terry.
But again, I know I'm maybe a little cold. I don't even subscribe to like not talk about people when they're dead. Like, if you were a piece of shit alive, like I will still talk about.
roast you,
I will
yeah.
still like. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
we don't talk well about Hitler. We
No,
don't
not at all.
we don't talk well.
Be like,
we're not-
but
we're-
Hitler had a dog.
we're
Like,
not-
no, we don't care.
Yeah, fuck
gonna-
that dog.
We're not going to talk that way about Trump when he
Nah,
meets
man.
his demise. You know what I
That
mean?
will be 50-50.
Oh my God, people are
not in
yeah.
this room. Is
Not
what
in
I'm
this
saying.
room.
Definitely not.
This
Definitely
is
not
what
in
I'm
this
saying.
room.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
not in
Like
this room.
some people will, but I'm just saying like, you. No, I'm not going to switch it up. Death is just the finalized version of whatever it is.
It's
but
inevitable. I mean, you can.
So-
we can sit here knowing that somebody we don't rock with morally or whatever, spiritually, anything like that, are going to pass, and we don't rock with them right now. And just because you passed, you don't get a pass.
yeah,
It stays the same clear across the board. Death does not make you a better person.
yeah.
And some people that subscribe to religion or knowing that you have to answer to a higher power, what is that conversation going to be like
Mhm.
whenever you make it to that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're not, everybody that dies isn't going to heaven, so to speak.
If you believe in it.
Yeah.
If you believe in that, yeah.
A lot of these people that y'all be like, rest in peace, this, that, and the other, and the way that y'all believe actually went to hell.
People say, well, we know he's looking down on you.
No, he's not.
No,
He's looking up.
Some people are looking up. Like, they're,
Yeah.
you're under the
Yeah.
impression this person went to heaven. And it's like, if you take accounting for his life, he did enough.
Them monks
He didn't do.
staring in the black.
He didn't do enough to where like we should even consider that possibility.
I ain't gonna hold you. I've had family members. I see the preacher up there preaching. I'm like, man,
Who is he talking about?
Yeah.
Y'all can't be talking
Come
about.
on. He's on one of them levels of hell that was in Dante's Inferno.
Dante's Inferno.
Y'all
yeah.
can't be talking about who I knew. And I'm just being honest. We talking about two different people.
That's just a level of fakeness I just can't do.
Yeah, no,
Like,
for sure.
I can't pretend like somebody. Like I can do condolences for the people that maybe that person was affected positively.
Yeah,
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean? But that's it. Like
ultimately,
But
man,
you left a bunch of broken people out here.
yeah, exactly. So I mean,
yeah, that
Yeah, you don't deserve peace for that.
I mean, that other person's probably a piece of shit too. So I mean,
that right there is unacceptable. Period. There's no sugarcoating for that. That's just a whole bunch of bullshit. So
Yeah, man.
nah,
you gotta be accountable. You gotta to some degree. Like people mess up, and people are allowed to mess up. We all mess up in different
100%.
capacities, right?
100%. Yeah,
But like,
You have to atone for those sins.
You have to. You got to atone for it. You got to be accountable for it. You got to accept it. And
that's the word, Lone. It's accountability. It's accountability, and a lot of people run from that. So
To me, that's the biggest piece.
No,
Like
100%.
I'd have way more respect for him if he was like, you know what, I was really foul.
I was on bullshit.
I was
apologize.
doing stuff. I don't know what I was
Be like,
thinking.
I was if he came
I was
out,
a degenerate.
I was a closeted
Yeah.
homosexual
Yeah.
who had a problem when it came to young men. I'm trying to get some help.
Yeah,
Clearly, this is
That's different.
that's different.
different.
All this
And there's gonna
conversation will be
And
different.
there's
had
going to
he
be
did something
somebody
like that.
mad just because
Sure.
I said he's a closeted homosexual. Like, and let's just keep it real.
That's what it was.
He messed with young boys.
Yeah,
That's hey.
it is what it is, man. My coach used to always tell me, the tape don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is.
He's a degenerate.
100%.
And no attempt to ever try to get any help or try to involve himself in any healing. So
No,
I can't even really send out a rest in peace.
I don't feel bad, man. Run me my money and subscribe to Patreon. Thank you.
So the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame says no to New Edition.
Nope.
So New Edition has been excluded from the 2026 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction class despite their dominant victory in the official fan vote. This development has sparked a conversation about the true influence of public opinion versus the internal, and my screen would
preferences of the Hall's voting committee.
My man, love this guy. So let's get right to the question, because I think this is BS. But can the Hall justify soliciting millions of fan votes if the top choice can be summarily bypassed by the nominating committee?
Yes.
If so, how?
Look, I've done these things before,
Man.
and we've had people win votes from fan votes that had didn't deserve to even be on the stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we opened it up for people to vote, and people throw their votes out there, and it'd be like, all right, man, like what we ended up doing is we ended up
Held a certain percentage.
Yeah, you've got a certain percentage, and then we would also say the fan vote, just like the fan won this.
Yeah.
But the team of experts around everything, which was a handful of experts that actually did it, voted for these people. And so, yes, I can say I am not somebody that is 100% fans dictate this stuff. No, that's not me.
Well, no, I can.
If somebody else wants to, like, if you disagree with that, that is okay. But from my perspective of what we did for so long, no.
So what you said, before we go to Jay, so what you're saying is it can be justified based off.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I want to make
the
sure.
people that are making the votes, that are choosing, are far more qualified, in my opinion, most likely, to determine everybody, as opposed to a bunch of people that just got their people to vote for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Grammys.
Yep. I mean, you don't have to agree. That's okay. I don't really care.
Go ahead, Jay. What you think, Jay?
Well, I mean, I can completely understand why you only want to give the fan vote a certain amount of weight when it comes to these sort of decisions, because, you know, people can stuff the ballot box. I voted more than once for New Edition, Luther Vandross, and Wu-Tang Clan.
At least you're honest.
Because these are the people, and I voted for Sade, because you can vote for more than one person. No, I voted for Phil Collins because I just think he deserved it.
Absolutely.
Facts.
Shit.
Facts.
Phil Collins is a GOAT.
But,
Facts.
I completely understand. But at the same time, when, someone overwhelmingly wins the fan vote,
then
it's like, okay, well, maybe we should have taken a look and really decided who we're going to put in there. I mean, because Pink, because they was like the top 7 finishers, and that was a constant thing. Like Pink was always in the top 3 or 4, and she didn't get in either. And here I'm looking at the list right now with the help of technology. Joy Division, who was getting in, was never in that top 7. Wu-Tang Clan was never in the top 7, which is kind of crazy. Like they were always right outside. Oasis, I don't think was in the top 7 either. So
are they getting in?
They're getting in, which I'm.
Is that their first ballot too?
I don't know. But the people who are getting in are Phil Collins, Billy Idol, Iron Maiden, Joy Division and New Order, Oasis, Sade, Luther Vandross, Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah, those are the ones that they got in, and they're not. It's not like a separate category, because of course Celia Cruz, Fela Kuti, Queen Latifah, MC Lyte, and Jimmy Miller and Rick Rubin. They're all. Ed Sullivan's getting in. So he's going to be a part of this process. But it's kind of where I kind of see an issue is, New Edition it was almost in its own way the blueprint for Wu-Tang Clan to come out as the group,
hip hop boy band,
to split off into the individual acts, and then to be able to come back in as a collective again to do what you got to do. Plus they New Edition predates by 10 years as far as their first recorded album. They have as many. If you're an R&B fan, they have as many, if not more, actual good albums in their catalog than because we've debated how many actual good albums Wu-Tang Clan has. But as a collective, especially when you're throwing in the fantastic work that Ghostface has done as far as really holding down the image of Wu-Tang, it really I feel I wasn't so surprised that Wu-Tang got in, even though they didn't reach that top 7, because it does give a certain level of credibility to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if they acknowledge Wu-Tang Clan. It doesn't really do the same thing for New Edition, sadly, because they started off really as kind of a pop, a bubblegum group, and then like when people say who did they influence, and then you're like, well,
everybody.
Because people say, oh, if it weren't for New Edition, there's no New Kids on the Block, there's no NSYNC, there's no Justin. But at the same time, if you're part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you don't care about them influencing those people.
Absolutely not.
I with all that being said, like as you're reading the list, it doesn't mean that the people that are choosing still can't be wrong.
Right.
Like, I just want to make that clarifying point because I do think that New Edition should be in.
100%.
Based upon there's names that you listed, Oasis should not be in over New Edition.
Definitely not over
Fact.
New
Like
Edition.
that's kind of
They don't have any cultural impact.
I don't want to say that. It's just we don't.
no. I listen.
they
to
don't-
At the
don't
same
have-
time, I don't
Oasis don't have
I
the
listen to
cultural
Oasis.
impact
Of
that
New
a
Edition.
New Edition
Not
has.
even close.
And I listen to Oasis. That's what I'm saying. No,
Okay.
they
It's
don't.
not
They
even
don't
close.
even belong in there. Like
because
it's not
I
even
don't know
close.
much after What's the Story, Morning Glory. I just don't.
No, it's no.
Champagne Supernova. I love those records, but I remember when they came out, it was like 99. They had the song "Do You Know What I Mean," and it was like, all right, this is cool.
And
but
that's not taken away from Oasis and their great run.
No,
but
no.
when
They
you're,
not
when
New
you're
Edition.
comparing the
This
two,
is
it's
New
like,
Edition,
nah,
man.
They're not New
At the
Edition.
end of the day, and I see it both ways when it comes to this particular situation because like Lone, I've been in a position to where we had to vote or put out something for fans to vote on, and this artist really ain't sitting on nothing. But New Edition obviously is a cultural icon.
Facts.
Without New Edition, there wouldn't be a lot of groups. There wouldn't be a lot of even when you think about the butterfly effect that New Edition caused, there would be no Boys to Men. There would be no
look without
just a whole lot of people.
look
you know what I'm saying?
without Bobby Brown. There's you can draw a clear line from Bobby Brown to Usher to Chris Brown.
Absolutely.
Come on.
But then it all goes down to Michael Jackson or The Godfather.
James
Exactly.
Brown.
James Brown.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I kind of see it both ways with this as far as somebody like New Edition who got the #1 spot from a fan vote. It should have been weighted a little bit differently based on what type of group this is. Now, if it was a group that wasn't a cultural icon, that wasn't very influential, that didn't come out in the early 80s and is still able to tour to this day, then it would be a different story.
Mhm.
But like this is New Edition at the end of the day. So it should have held a little more weight as far as a fan is concerned. But like Jay said, you can vote multiple times on this. New Edition's fan base is known. I mean, they still got Candy Girls. They're in their 50s.
NE for lifers.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And E for lifers. So it's like what they've brought to the game is so substantial that by itself should merit a first ballot entry into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
We shouldn't be having this conversation.
Right, we shouldn't be
At
having this
all.
conversation.
At all.
But we all know what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is. I
Yep.
bring this up a lot often that Donny Hathaway is still not inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He has a huge impact as well, and he's been gone since the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Been
but
eligible.
Been eligible. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, shout out to everybody that made it in. Wu-Tang Clan already knew is a shoe-in.
Yep.
Wu-Tang is for the kids, essentially, and they're worldwide. New Edition's impact may not have made them worldwide, but as far as the United States is concerned and surrounding countries or whatever, people know who New Edition is.
Well, then
If they don't know who New Edition is, they know who Bobby Brown is, even from his connection to Whitney Houston, essentially.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they done a lot of good for the music business and the influence and what artists mean today and what artists can attempt to do. Because even when you break down, even not being an artist, but as somebody that is discovering people, Michael Bivins was Diddy before Diddy was.
There you go.
He discovered Boys to Men.
ABC.
He got him on Arsenio Hall show before they even came out with an album. You know what I'm saying? He was very instrumental in building these artists up. And it's just, I mean, New Edition at the end of the day. I'm a New Edition fan. I've been a New Edition fan pretty much my whole life. So, of course, I have a certain bias when it comes to New Edition. But again,
And sometimes we have to acknowledge a run. Like, even, they haven't put out a record of
10 years at least.
No, it's been more than that.
It's
It's
longer
been
than
about
that.
20 years actually since the Bad Boy New Edition album came out,
I stand corrected.
which But at the same time, you got to look at it. They were able to have hits in the 80s, 90s, 2000. Like when you have hits over 3 and 4 decades,
still touring with those
and
hits.
the fact that like you're not, when New Edition comes to town, they're not playing the state fair. Nothing against anybody plays state fairs or whatever. They are getting top dollar to play in your arena.
In venues though, like big venues.
Yeah, like your arena.
Facts.
Like so.
Facts.
So when you're talking about people who can still pull that off, and the thing is, Oasis did the same thing this year. It's just it wasn't on our radar like that. But I said, I didn't watch enough Headbangers Ball to really know Megadeth. So
I know they had some crazy shirts.
Yeah, I've seen the shirts, and like that's really I couldn't name a Megadeth song that just Joy Division and New Order. I probably heard.
I don't even
know
who they are.
I
couldn't tell you a Joy Division record off top.
Sade, as far as the run she's had,
she's
contributed
she's
to
supposed
the game.
to be in there.
No
first.
brainer.
Vandross probably should have been
Lucas should
in.
have been in there.
And like I said, Phil Collins was I thought he was at the top of the list
MC
for
Light
me.
is in there too.
Well, there is as pioneers and contributors.
I see.
Like
so New Edition should have been a pioneer.
Because quite honestly, they predate MC Light and Queen Latifah.
That's what I'm saying.
And even I just remember when I said, "Man, New Edition really needs to be in," and is when I saw NWA go in, because I'm like, wait a minute. When we talk about impact, we talk about people splintering off and doing big things
and changing the game.
And when you put the CDs on the table, then New Edition probably should have been in before NWA.
New Blue Sun Moon.
I have no idea who that group is.
Tragic. That's tragic.
So I mean, like I said, and I'm not trying to take anything away from New Edition, Wu-Tang Clan, Megadeth, whoever, but I think when you talk about a cultural impact, especially when you're talking about the pantheon of R&B, New Edition, that is, that's like the way my father feels about the Temptations, the ways people 10 years later felt about the Jacksons or the Jackson 5, which I think honestly the Jacksons should be in alongside the Jackson 5 because that's two different groups.
That is.
That's how people my age, like
That's
I said,
how
I'm
cold they
about
were.
to hit 49. That's how we feel about New Edition.
Yeah,
And,
for real.
I know there's an opportunity for them to get in, but I look at all Hall of Fame as being extremely flawed.
NewOldHeads.com for all the education you need this year. If you see it, like it, subscribe.
Click the bell for notifications. Do all those great things that you love to do to support the New Old Heads podcast, including clicking the subscribe button and the bell and all that stuff. Become a $5 member to get all the uncut stuff. Do all of that stuff. Thank you. New Old Heads. Bong bong.